The moment she uttered the words, "I have a date tonight," the room seemed to shrink around him. Hyun-woo froze. Not a twitch, not a blink, just stillness, as if time had stopped. The white marble walls of his penthouse reflected the storm brewing in his dark eyes. 10 minutes had passed, and he hadn't moved. His hand, poised with a pen, hovered over his planner as if it were a lifeline. Yet he couldn't write, couldn't breathe properly. You have a date?" he finally asked, his voice tight, low, controlled, but carrying an edge that made the cook, Ji-eun, flinch slightly. Her eyes widened, unsure if she had crossed some unspoken boundary. "Yes," she said softly, avoiding his gaze. "I told you, I won't be home early tonight. I already made plans." Hyun-woo's chest tightened, a strange mix of disbelief and something sharper. "Plans?" His voice dropped, a rumble rather than a question. "With someone else?" Ji-eun shook her head, gently but firmly. "It's not like that. It's just dinner with a friend." But Hyun-woo didn't hear the words. He was frozen in thought, replaying every interaction, every laugh they had shared, every late-night conversation over files or tea. He had always thought of her as part of the machinery of his life, dependable, precise, indispensable. But suddenly, the thought of her existing outside his reach, outside his control, sparked something he hadn't admitted even to himself: jealousy. Ji-eun tilted her head, watching him carefully. "Are you okay?" she asked, tentative. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he simply stared, the silence heavy between them. The kind of silence that screams louder than any shouting. Then, almost imperceptibly, his hand tightened around the pen. Finally, he spoke, voice measured but cold. "You will still be back in time for dinner, won't you?" Ji-eun's lips pressed into a thin line. "Hyun-woo, I said I won't be home early." The words hit him like a shock wave, and for a heartbeat, the carefully controlled facade cracked. His jaw tightened. He looked at her, the elegant simplicity of her uniform, the gentle curve of her smile, the way she stood so naturally in his space, and he realized he didn't just want her to be home. He needed to see her, to know she belonged in his life, in his world. He leaned back, exhaling slowly, trying to suppress the sudden storm of emotion. 10 minutes, he muttered to himself, almost inaudibly. I've been sitting here 10 minutes. Ji-eun blinked, sensing the undercurrent of tension. You don't have to." "I do," Hyun-woo interrupted sharply, rising with fluid precision. He was suddenly aware of every inch of the space between them, of the polished floor beneath his shoes, of the small details he usually ignored. But none of it mattered. Only her mattered. "If you leave now, I want to know who you are meeting." Ji-eun froze, uncertain whether he was serious or joking. "Hyun-woo, I said now," he pressed, his voice low but unyielding. The commanding tone she had long respected in meetings, in the boardroom, now carried a personal weight that made her stomach flutter. She hesitated, caught between professional courtesy and the strange, intimate tension filling the room. You're impossible," she whispered, half amused, half exasperated. She picked up her coat and bag, her movements deliberate. "Fine. You can come with me if you want. See for yourself. But I warn you, I don't kiss and tell." Hyun-woo blinked. Then, without another word, he followed. The ride to the restaurant was a silent one, punctuated only by the faint hum of the city lights streaking past the black windows of his luxury car. Ji-eun occasionally glanced at him, noticing the way he avoided her eyes, hands gripping the steering wheel, jaw tight. He wasn't angry. He was far worse. Jealous, protective, uncertain. When they arrived, she stopped, turning to face him. "Are you really going to follow me inside?" He didn't hesitate. "Yes," he said, almost brutally simple. Ji-eun raised an eyebrow, lips twitching into a restrained smile. "Hyun-woo?" "I said yes," he repeated, his tone unyielding. Then, softer, almost imperceptibly, "Because I don't like being left behind." Her heart skipped. That admission, subtle as it was, landed harder than any grand confession. She looked at him, really looked, and for the first time she saw the man beneath the CEO, intense, passionate, and desperately human. Inside the restaurant, the warm lights reflected off polished surfaces, and Hyun-woo felt every second stretch. He watched her greet a table of acquaintances, and the irrational surge of jealousy gripped him again. He wanted to step in, to remind her she was his in some unspoken, indefinable way. "Hyun-woo," Ji-eun said softly, pulling him out of his spiraling thoughts. "Sit. You can't just watch me like this." He hesitated, then sat. The seat felt suddenly too large, too empty. But the tension between them was electric, a live wire of emotion neither could ignore. He ordered water, nothing else, his eyes never leaving her face. As the evening progressed, every word she exchanged with others sparked a tiny flare of irritation in him. He tried to suppress it, remind himself this was normal, but he failed spectacularly. When she laughed at a joke he didn't understand, his chest tightened, a reminder of how deeply he cared, how dangerously attached he was. Ji-eun noticed the subtle shift in him, the tightening of his jaw, the way his hand rested lightly on the table, almost unconsciously near hers. Her pulse quickened, though she tried to remain composed. She had always known he was intense, but tonight she was seeing the man behind the empire, and it frightened her in the most exhilarating way. And then, almost inevitably, their eyes met across the table. The world narrowed until it was just the two of them. Hyun-woo's usual authority gave way to raw, unguarded emotion. "Why do I care so much?" he muttered to himself, voice barely audible. Ji-eun tilted her head, sensing the confession even if she didn't hear the words clearly. She reached out, touching his hand lightly. It was an innocent gesture, but it made him flinch in the best possible way. The restaurant faded around them, unnoticed. The night had begun with a statement, a simple, "I have a date tonight." And yet, in those 10 frozen minutes in his penthouse, and every moment since, it had spiraled into something neither of them could deny. Even now, Hyun-woo realized he wasn't just watching her. He was seeing himself in her presence, flawed, jealous, human. And the thought terrified him. If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button to follow the full saga of Hyun-woo and Ji-eun's unexpected romance. Leave a comment if you think Hyun-woo will finally admit his feelings tonight. Hyun-woo's hand twitched slightly under hers, and for a moment, the world outside the restaurant seemed irrelevant. The clinking of glasses, the hum of conversations, the laughter from nearby tables, all of it melted into background noise. He was acutely aware of her, of the subtle warmth of her touch, the faint scent of her perfume. Ji-eun pulled back, noticing the intensity in his gaze. "Hyun-woo, you're staring," she said lightly, but there was a hint of caution in her voice. "I can't help it," he admitted, his voice low and unsteady. You look different tonight." "Different?" she asked, raising an eyebrow. "Yes," he said, the words spilling out before he could stop them. "You're more alive, more impossible." Ji-eun's lips curved into a small smile, but there was a flicker of something else, wariness, maybe even fear. "Impossible," she repeated. "You know exactly what I mean," he said, leaning slightly forward. "I've spent years controlling everything, business, people, even myself. But you, Ji-eun, you don't fit into any of my plans." Her heart skipped a beat. She had always sensed the CEO's intensity, but tonight it was different. Vulnerable, raw, and dangerously personal. "Hyun-woo," she began, unsure whether to tease, to laugh, or to pull away. "Don't," he interrupted, a flicker of desperation in his dark eyes. "Don't walk away. Not now." She hesitated, caught between amusement and the undeniable pull of the moment. She had been professional for so long, keeping the line between employer and employee razor thin. But tonight, it felt like that line no longer existed. A waiter approached with their meals, and Hyun-woo's focus flickered just long enough to order. His usual perfectionism dictated that the dishes be exactly right, but tonight he barely tasted the food, barely registered the presentation. He was aware only of her presence, of the quiet chaos she stirred in him. Ji-eun tried to break the tension with small talk, discussing the restaurant's specials, her friend who had invited her tonight, the mundane details of the evening. But Hyun-woo's responses were clipped, sharp, and oddly protective. Every laugh she gave someone else, every casual touch from another hand sent a jolt through him, a reminder that she existed outside his control. "You're very quiet," she said finally, curiosity edging her voice. "I'm not quiet," he said, tone sharp. "I'm observant." "Observant?" she echoed, a playful edge creeping in. "Yes," he said, narrowing his eyes, lips twitching in a ghost of a smile. "Observing you." The table between them felt smaller, charged with tension that neither could ignore. Hyun-woo's gaze was relentless, yet it carried something else, an admission he could not voice aloud. Fear, maybe. Longing, definitely. And beneath it all, a need he had never recognized before tonight. Ji-eun met his gaze and felt herself falter. There was something raw in him tonight, something she had never seen in the corporate meetings or private briefings. He wasn't just the CEO. He was a man, complicated, impatient, and achingly human. "Hyun-woo," she began again, softer this time, her fingers brushing his hand accidentally. "Why do you care so much?" He flinched, the contact sending a shiver down his spine. Because I do," he said finally, voice breaking slightly. I don't want to admit it, but I can't stop thinking about you." Ji-eun's eyes widened, and for a heartbeat, silence fell between them. The words hung in the air like electricity, each one heavier than the last. She wanted to laugh, to tease, to deny the impossible pull between them, but she couldn't. Not tonight. I've never thought about you like that," she whispered finally, almost inaudibly. "Not until tonight." Hyun-woo's jaw tightened. "I've tried not to," he admitted. "I've tried to ignore it. I've tried to keep things professional. But every time I see you, every time you smile, laugh, move..." His voice faltered, raw emotion breaking through the usual icy control. "I lose myself." Ji-eun's heart raced. She had always known he was intense, but this was different. She wanted to reach out, to touch him, to close the impossible distance, but caution still lingered. "Hyun-woo, you're scaring me a little," she admitted, half teasing, half serious. "Good," he said, almost a growl. "You should be scared, because I don't know how to stop myself around you." The words hit harder than she expected. She could feel the shift, the escalating tension that had been building since the moment she had uttered the fateful words. Her date, Her plans, all of it, suddenly seemed trivial compared to the storm that had taken over the man sitting across from her. And then, as if on cue, a friend from her table leaned over, unaware of the silent battle playing out in their midst. "Ji-eun, this is—" Hyun-woo's hand shot out almost instinctively, resting lightly over hers. The gesture was protective, possessive, and completely unplanned. "Not now," he said softly but firmly, his gaze locking onto hers. "Just you and me, for now." The friend raised an eyebrow but sensed the tension and withdrew politely, leaving them alone. Ji-eun's pulse raced. She had never seen him like this, human, vulnerable, and dangerously close. "Hyun-woo," she whispered, her voice trembling slightly. "I can't," he began, stopping himself. His usual control wavered, replaced by raw emotion. "I shouldn't feel like this. I shouldn't care so much. But I do, and I can't hide it anymore." Her hand in his felt like an anchor, grounding him even as it threatened to unravel all the control he had built over his life. She wanted to pull away, but the pull between them was magnetic. Neither could deny it any longer. And as the night stretched on, with each stolen glance, each accidental brush of fingers, and each unspoken word, the tension escalated. They were no longer just CEO and employee, not just cook and employer. They were something dangerous, thrilling, and impossibly real. The evening moved forward, the restaurant fading into background noise as their emotions took center stage. Every laugh, every sigh, every movement of her hand sent ripples through him, shaking the carefully constructed walls of his control. And for the first time in years, Hyun-woo felt alive, vulnerable, and utterly, impossibly human. By the time the plates were cleared and the final glasses were drained, the city lights outside reflected in their eyes. The tension had not dissipated. It had intensified, coiling tighter with every heartbeat. Neither spoke immediately. Words were unnecessary. The storm between them had reached its peak, and the silence was as loud as any confession. Ji-eun finally exhaled, her fingers brushing against his one last time before retracting. "Hyun-woo, what's happening to us?" He looked at her, dark eyes holding a mixture of longing, fear, and something else, something he could no longer deny. "I don't know," he admitted softly, "but I don't want to stop." If you're hooked by Hyun-woo and Ji-eun's escalating tension, don't forget to subscribe and like the video. Comment below. Do you think they'll finally admit their feelings tonight? Or will something else intervene? Hyun-woo's mind raced as he walked Ji-eun out of the restaurant. The city lights shimmered in the reflection of the wet pavement, but he barely noticed them. All he could focus on was the warmth radiating from her, the soft sway of her movements, the unspoken emotions hanging thick between them. "Hyun-woo," she said softly, breaking the silence. "We need to be careful. You know how complicated this is." He stopped mid-step, turning to face her. The glow of the street lamps highlighted the sharp lines of his face, the storm in his dark eyes. "I don't care about complicated," he said firmly. "I care about you." Ji-eun blinked, startled. She had expected hesitation, caution, perhaps a polite denial, but not this intensity. "Hyun-woo, you can't just say things like that," she whispered, a mixture of awe and fear threading her words. "Why not?" he asked, stepping closer. "Because I'm your boss? Because I'm a billionaire? Because I'm me?" His voice was low, controlled, yet trembling, with something primal. "None of that matters. None of it." Ji-eun's heart raced. She wanted to step back, to reassert the professional boundary that had always defined their relationship. But she couldn't. The pull between them was magnetic, undeniable. "Hyun-woo, we can't," she said, though her voice wavered. He reached out, gently cupping her face with a hand that was firm yet tentative, as if afraid she might disappear. "We can," he said softly. "I want to. And I'm not willing to wait any longer to feel what's been there all along." Her breath hitched. The air between them felt charged, alive with tension. For the first time, the CEO she had always seen as cold and unapproachable was raw, vulnerable, and entirely human. Ji-eun's voice trembled as she spoke. "But Hyun-woo, what if we mess everything up?" He shook his head, dark hair falling slightly over his forehead. "Some things are worth the risk." His thumb brushed lightly across her cheek, and she shivered despite herself. "I don't care about business. I don't care about rules. I care about you. Just you." Ji-eun felt her resolve weaken. All the logic she had relied upon, all the professional boundaries, all the careful planning, they were crumbling in the face of something undeniable. Her heart raced, every beat echoing the same thought. She had never felt anything like this before. They reached the edge of the street where his car was waiting. He held the door open, an unspoken offer. She hesitated, glancing at him, torn between fear and desire. "Hyun-woo." "Yes," he said simply. "Let me take care of tonight. Let me prove to you, whatever this is real." Ji-eun nodded, almost imperceptibly, and slid into the car. The silence inside the vehicle was thick, but it was no longer uncomfortable. It was charged, heavy with anticipation and unspoken emotion. Hyun-woo drove without speaking, his focus entirely on the road ahead, or maybe on the fragile presence beside him. Finally, she broke the silence. "Hyun-woo, what exactly are we doing?" He glanced at her, his expression unreadable. "We're figuring it out. Together." Her fingers brushed against his almost accidentally, and he caught her hand, holding it lightly but firmly. "I've never felt like this before," he admitted, voice low. "I've controlled everything in my life, every outcome, every decision, but not this. Not you. You've undone me." Ji-eun felt a flutter of emotion, her chest tightening in a way that was equal parts thrilling and terrifying. "Hyun-woo, you're intense," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "I know," he said, almost grimly, "and I don't care. Because I want you, Ji-eun. I need you. And I won't let anything stand in my way tonight." The intensity of his gaze made her shiver. She wanted to pull away, to remind herself of boundaries, yet she found herself leaning closer, drawn to the fire she saw in him. By the time they reached the penthouse, neither spoke. Words felt unnecessary, inadequate to capture the tension, the anticipation, the unspoken confessions that had built between them. The elevator ride was excruciatingly slow, each floor a drumbeat echoing in their chests. When the doors opened, Hyun-woo paused, then turned to her. "Are you ready?" he asked, his voice barely more than a whisper. Ji-eun nodded, a tremor in her fingers as she stepped inside. The penthouse was dimly lit, the city lights casting long shadows across the room. He gestured toward the living area, but she didn't move. She was rooted, caught between desire and caution. "I can't believe you followed me," she whispered, more to herself than to him. "I told you," he said, stepping closer. "I needed to know where you were, who you were with, what you were doing. I can't not care." Her breath hitched. Every word, every step, every glance from him carried weight, emotion, meaning. She had known Hyun-woo was intense, but this raw, unguarded vulnerability was something else entirely. She had known Hyun-woo was intense, but this raw, unguarded vulnerability was something else entirely. She swallowed hard. "Hyun-woo, don't," he said, cutting her off gently. "Don't say anything. Just feel." And she did. The tension, the anticipation, the unspoken emotions, they converged into a single, palpable moment. For a heartbeat, the world outside ceased to exist. There was no penthouse, no city skyline, no obligations or rules. There was only them, standing in the dim glow, suspended between what was and what could be. Hyun-woo reached out, brushing a stray lock of hair from her face. His fingers lingered, tracing the line of her jaw with a tenderness that was almost terrifying in its intensity. "You don't know what you do to me," he admitted, voice low, reverent. Ji-eun felt her pulse race, her body responding despite every rational thought screaming caution. "Hyun-woo, you don't have to say anything," he whispered, closing the gap. "Just be here, with me." Their lips almost met, a breath away from colliding, and the world seemed to hold its breath. The tension, the desire, the fear, the longing, all coiled into a single impossible moment. Neither moved, caught in the gravity of what they felt. The penthouse was silent except for the faint hum of the city below, a witness to the storm brewing between them. And though neither spoke, the energy between them was undeniable, electric, impossible to ignore. Hyun-woo felt his pulse hammering as he watched Ji-eun, every inch of space between them charged with electricity. The penthouse was quiet, but the tension inside was deafening. Neither of them moved at first, each caught in the gravity of the other. "Hyun-woo," Ji-eun whispered again, her voice trembling. This is dangerous." He stepped closer, his shadow falling over her as if the city lights themselves had dimmed to focus only on them. "Dangerous?" he repeated, almost mockingly, though his eyes were serious. "Everything worth feeling is dangerous, and I've spent too long living without feeling at all." Her breath hitched. You mean that?" "I do," he said softly, but the intensity in his gaze made her knees weak. "Every word." She swallowed hard, trying to steady herself. "Hyun-woo, I've always respected the rules. I've always been careful." "And I've always been careful," he interrupted, voice dropping to a murmur. "Careful with business, with people, with my life. But I can't be careful with you. I won't. I don't want to." A shiver ran down her spine, equal parts thrill and fear. He was magnetic, overpowering, and yet tender in a way she had never imagined. She had always admired his control, his precision, but now, seeing him this way, she realized how much power he had over her heart. Hyun-woo reached out, taking her hand in his grip firm but not crushing. "Do you feel it too?" he asked, voice low, almost pleading. Ji-eun's pulse raced. She wanted to say no, to resist, to remind herself of boundaries, but the truth was impossible to deny. "Yes," she admitted, barely a whisper. I feel it." His lips curved into the faintest smile, though it didn't reach the storm in his eyes. "Finally," he murmured. "Finally, you admit it." She looked at him, the conflict raging in her own chest mirrored in his dark, intense eyes. "Hyun-woo, we can't. Everyone. Everything." He shook his head, brushing a loose strand of hair from her face. "I don't care about anyone else. I don't care about everything else. I care about you, only you." Her chest tightened. The words, so simple and yet so profound, hit her harder than anything she had ever heard. She felt herself leaning in, drawn toward him despite every rational thought screaming caution. Just as the distance between them closed, The faint buzz of her phone broke the spell. Ji-eun pulled back reluctantly, checking the screen. "It's my friend. She's worried I've gone quiet." Hyun-woo's jaw tightened imperceptibly, a flicker of irritation passing across his face. He didn't speak, but the look alone was enough to make her heart race. She knew he was jealous, and the realization sent a thrill through her. "I should reply," she said softly, tucking the phone away after a quick response. "I don't want her to worry." Hyun-woo's hand lingered over hers for a moment longer before he finally let go. "Fine," he said, voice controlled but with an edge. "But you're not leaving me alone tonight. Not after everything that's happened." Her lips pressed into a thin line, torn between amusement and desire. "Hyun-woo," she began, but he cut her off. "No words," he said firmly. "Just presence. Just this. Just us." She nodded, feeling the pull of him like a current she couldn't resist. She moved closer again, and this time he didn't hesitate, closing the distance until the space between them disappeared. Their eyes locked, and for a heartbeat, nothing else existed. Then, a sudden knock at the penthouse door jolted them apart. Both turned sharply, tension replaced by sudden alertness. "Who?" Ji-eun whispered, glancing at the door. Hyun-woo's dark eyes narrowed. "No one should be here," he muttered, moving toward the door with a predator's grace. He opened it to reveal one of his assistants, bowing slightly. "Sir, urgent matter from the office. Your presence is required immediately." Hyun-woo's chest tightened. He glanced back at Ji-eun, who was watching him with wide, apprehensive eyes. "Go," he said softly. "I'll handle it quickly. Stay here. Don't move." She nodded reluctantly, biting her lip as he closed the door behind him. The storm of emotion that had been building between them didn't dissipate. If anything, it intensified. She paced slightly, her mind racing with what had just happened. The confessions, the tension, the unspoken desire that hung heavy in the air. Meanwhile, Hyun-woo strode to his private study, his mind half on the urgent office matter, half consumed with thoughts of her. Every detail, every glance, every word she had said replayed in his head like a relentless loop. He hated the interruption, hated the necessity of control, hated everything that was pulling him away from the one person who mattered. Hyun-woo's eyes never left Ji-eun as he stepped closer, the space between them charged with something neither could deny. The penthouse, luxurious and meticulously ordered, faded into the background. Everything else, the city, the world outside, even his empire, mattered far less than the pull between them. Ji-eun felt herself drawn to him, every rational thought screaming caution, but every heartbeat urging her forward. "Hyun-woo," she whispered, her voice trembling, unsure if she was speaking to warn or to invite. He tilted his head, the shadows from the city lights accentuating the sharp lines of his face. "Yes?" His voice was low, dangerous, soft, filled with restrained emotion. She faltered. The words lodged in her throat as her pulse raced. She'd always been careful, always professional, but tonight, control had slipped through her fingers. The intensity in his eyes made every nerve in her body tingle. Hyun-woo reached out, brushing a stray lock of hair from her face. "You don't have to say anything," he murmured. "Just stay here. Just let me be close." She swallowed hard. "I'm afraid," she admitted, her voice barely audible. "Afraid of what this could do." He stepped even closer, closing the last of the distance between them. "Afraid of what? Me? My position? Or what you feel?" His fingers brushed her jaw, gentle yet possessive. "Ji-eun, I don't care about any of that. I only care about you. And if you're afraid, I'll take it slow. But I won't stop. Not tonight. Not ever." Her chest tightened, and her hands shook slightly as she reached out, touching his arm. The contact sent a shiver down both their spines. "Hyun-woo, you're overwhelming." "And you like it," he replied softly, dark eyes glinting. "Don't lie to me. You like it." Ji-eun felt herself caught between denial and desire. Maybe," she whispered, the words tasting like confession and fear all at once. His lips curved into a faint, dark smile. "Good," he murmured, "because I don't plan on letting you go tonight. Not after everything, not after this moment." She tried to resist, tried to step back, but her feet felt rooted. Her heart raced so fast it hurt, and every glance at him made her weak. She realized she had never felt this way before, not for anyone, not for anything. The emotions coursing through her were raw, electric, and frightening. Hyun-woo noticed her hesitation and took it as permission to close the final space between them. He leaned down, their faces inches apart, breaths mingling. "Look at me," he whispered. "Just look. Forget everything else. Forget rules, boundaries, everything. Just us." Ji-eun obeyed, her eyes locking with his. The depth in his gaze was suffocating, exhilarating, and completely consuming. She saw him, the man beneath the CEO, the vulnerability beneath the control, the longing that matched her own. "Hyun-woo," she breathed, and it was both a warning and a plea. He closed the distance. His lips brushed hers, featherlight at first, testing, teasing, hesitant. Ji-eun froze, then melted into the contact, the first sparks igniting a fire that neither could contain. The kiss deepened slowly, a gradual surrender, their emotions pouring out with every brush of lips, every stolen breath. When they finally pulled back, breathless, the tension between them had shifted. No longer just desire. It was connection, confession, acknowledgement. Their foreheads rested together, sharing a moment of intimacy that words could never capture. I can't believe this," Ji-eun whispered, voice trembling. "I've never felt this before." "I know," Hyun-woo murmured. "Neither have I. And yet, it feels like it was always meant to happen. With you. Only you." Her chest tightened. She wanted to laugh, to cry, to run, but all she could do was nod, leaning into him. The pull was too strong to resist. Suddenly, the soft ping of her phone cut through the moment. Ji-eun glanced at the screen. "It's my friend. Again." Hyun-woo's jaw tightened imperceptibly, a shadow of irritation crossing his face. He stepped closer, protective, possessive. "Ignore it," he said, voice low. "They don't matter right now. You matter. Only you." Her pulse raced. The possessiveness, the intensity, the undeniable need in his tone, it thrilled her, scared her, made her heart race faster than she had ever thought possible. She looked at him, torn between caution and surrender. "Hyun-woo, you don't have to say anything," he whispered, brushing a stray hair from her face. "I know. I feel it. And I won't let it go. Not tonight. Not ever." The moment stretched between them, fragile and explosive. Ji-eun felt herself leaning closer again, the world outside fading entirely. The city lights, the penthouse, even her friend's messages, all irrelevant compared to the storm of emotions swirling between them. Hyun-woo's hand slid to her waist, drawing her gently but firmly closer. Every instinct screamed to claim her, to pull her entirely into this moment. But he restrained himself just enough to let the tension build. The air between them was thick, alive with unspoken desire, fear, and anticipation. "Hyun-woo," she whispered again, voice trembling, eyes searching his. What are we doing?" "We're starting," he said simply. "Starting something real, something we can't ignore anymore. And if it scares you, good. It should. Because what we have, it's dangerous, but it's worth it." Her chest tightened further. She wanted to resist, to retreat, but every word, every glance, every inch of him drew her forward. "Hyun-woo," she breathed, and it was a surrender, a question, a plea, all at once. He pressed his forehead to hers, eyes closing briefly. "I'm not asking for permission," he murmured. "I'm telling you, I'm yours, only yours. And tonight, we start. No interruptions, no excuses, no regrets." Ji-eun's lips parted, her heartbeat echoing in her chest. Hyun-woo. And with that, the tension between them exploded, a slow-burning fire igniting as they surrendered fully to the moment. The penthouse, the city, the world outside, all vanished. There was only them, raw, vulnerable, and impossibly connected. The penthouse air felt heavier, charged, every breath between them loaded with anticipation. Hyun-woo didn't let go of Ji-eun. Instead, he held her closer, letting the warmth of her presence seep into him, grounding him while also making him ache in ways he hadn't expected. "Hyun-woo, Ji-eun's voice wavered. "We can't. It's too sudden." "No," he interrupted softly but firmly, his forehead resting against hers. "It's exactly right. Too sudden. Maybe. Too late. Never. I've waited far too long to feel this, and I won't wait any longer." Her eyes searched his, trying to find the edge between his control and his vulnerability. "Hyun-woo, it's terrifying," she admitted, voice low. "I've never let anyone this close." He cupped her face in both hands now, his thumbs brushing over her cheeks. "Then let me be the first," he whispered. "Let me show you that. There's nothing to fear with me. Not if you let me in." Her heart raced uncontrollably. She wanted to resist, to remind herself of boundaries, yet the honesty in his eyes, the raw intensity, made it impossible. She felt herself leaning closer, her lips almost brushing his. You're relentless," she murmured, a half-laugh, half-breathless sound. "And you love it," he replied softly, almost teasing, though his dark eyes betrayed the storm behind the words. Ji-eun's fingers trembled as they brushed against his chest, feeling the rapid beat of his heart beneath the tailored suit. Maybe," she admitted, her voice catching. Hyun-woo's smile was subtle, dangerous, magnetic. "Good," he murmured, "because I have no intention of letting go tonight. Not when I've finally found you, right here in my arms." Her pulse raced, and for a moment everything froze. The world outside, the city lights, even the penthouse itself. There was only them, standing on the edge of something both terrifying and exhilarating. Then Hyun-woo's phone buzzed on the table. His dark eyes flicked to it, irritation flashing across his face. "Not now," he muttered, silencing it. "No interruptions. You have my full attention tonight. Do you understand?" Ji-eun nodded, a thrill running through her. The possessiveness, the intensity, the need in his voice, it thrilled her, scared her, and made her feel more alive than she had ever felt. He stepped even closer, and this time, Ji-eun didn't hesitate. She leaned into him, letting her lips brush against his in a tentative, testing kiss. His response was immediate, deep, consuming. Every doubt, every fear melted as he pulled her closer, their bodies pressed together in an intimacy that neither had allowed before. When they finally broke apart, breathless, Ji-eun's cheeks flushed. "Hyun-woo, I know," he murmured, resting his forehead against hers. "I feel it too, stronger than I've ever felt anything in my life." She felt a shiver run through her. Hyun-woo, I don't even know where to start." "Start with me," he said softly. "Start with us. Forget the world, forget rules, forget the rest. Just us." She nodded, her lips parting slightly as she let herself surrender to the pull between them. "Us," she whispered. Hyun-woo's hands moved gently to her waist, guiding her closer, pressing her against him. Every inch of her felt like it belonged to him, and every inch of him seemed to call to her. The tension, the desire, the unspoken emotions, they all converged in a single explosive moment. Their lips met again, this time with more certainty, more fire. The kiss deepened, slow, deliberate, a conversation of emotions too complex for words. Ji-eun's hands found their way to his shoulders, then to the back of his neck, drawing him closer, matching the intensity he radiated. The penthouse, the city, the world outside, it all ceased to exist. There was only them, entwined in an intimate dance of confession, desire, and raw emotion. Hyun-woo pulled back slightly, just enough to look into her eyes. "You have no idea what you do to me," he said, voice husky, low, filled with longing. "Every time I see you, every time I touch you, I lose myself." Ji-eun's breath hitched. I didn't think it would feel like this," she admitted. "With anyone, with anything, but with you." "You never imagined it," he murmured. "But you don't have to, because I'll make sure you feel it. Every single moment, every single night, every single heartbeat. You'll know, Ji-eun. You'll know you're mine." Her knees weakened at the words. The possessiveness, the intensity, the undeniable passion, it terrified her, thrilled her, and made her pulse race faster than she thought possible. "Hyun-woo, you're—" "I know," he interrupted softly, a dark smile tugging at the corners of his lips. "I'm me, and right now, I'm yours, completely." Ji-eun's fingers trembled as she traced the lines of his face, memorizing the contours she had long admired from a distance. "Yours," she whispered, voice trembling, breathless. I think I'm yours too." His eyes darkened, and for a moment silence stretched between them, heavy, electric, and filled with everything they hadn't yet dared to say. Then, slowly, deliberately, he drew her into his arms again, pressing his lips to hers in a kiss that was no longer tentative. It was claiming, affirming, consuming. Time seemed to stand still as they surrendered to the moment, the fire between them growing, unrelenting. Every touch, every glance, every heartbeat was a confession, a promise, a declaration. Finally, they broke apart, gasping for breath, foreheads pressed together. Hyun-woo's hands rested on her waist, holding her close, his voice low and reverent. "We're only just beginning," he whispered. "Tonight, everything changes. For both of us." Ji-eun nodded, her heart racing, mind spinning. I know," she breathed, "and I don't want it to stop." Hyun-woo smiled, dark and dangerous, yet filled with emotion. "Good," he murmured, "because neither do I. If you're loving the fire between Hyun-woo and Ji-eun, don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment below. Who else thinks this tension is about to explode even further?" Just as Hyun-woo drew Ji-eun closer, a sharp buzz interrupted the moment again. This time, it wasn't her phone. It was the intercom. The sound sliced through the charged air like a warning bell. Hyun-woo's jaw tightened instantly. "Who?" he muttered, moving to the wall-mounted speaker. "Sir, security detected an unexpected visitor at the lobby," the voice replied crisply. "They say it's urgent." Hyun-woo's dark eyes flickered to Ji-eun, and for the first time tonight, a shadow of unease crossed his usually composed face. "Stay here," he ordered, voice firm but tense. "Do not move. Lock the door behind me." Ji-eun nodded, her pulse hammering, not from desire this time, but from a sudden spike of fear. Hyun-woo was always in control, always prepared, but the way he moved toward the penthouse door, alert and tense, sent a thrill through her that was equal parts fear and excitement. She watched him open the door, his figure rigid, commanding, even as he confronted the visitor in the hallway. Ji-eun's eyes widened as she recognized the man who stepped in. Her friend's brother, a young executive who had a long-standing rivalry with Hyun-woo in the business world. "Hyun-woo," the man said, smirking, oblivious to Ji-eun's presence. "We need to talk about your little date tonight." Hyun-woo's lips pressed into a thin line. "This isn't the time or place," he said, low and dangerous. "Oh, I think it is," the man replied, stepping closer. "After all, it seems like someone special has distracted you, and you, of all people, can't afford distractions." Hyun-woo's eyes narrowed, his entire body radiating a controlled but deadly intensity. "I suggest you leave. Now," he said, voice icy. Ji-eun felt her chest tighten. She had seen Hyun-woo handle boardroom conflicts, negotiations, and even hostile takeovers, but seeing him this close to losing control, protective, possessive, and infuriatingly intense, made her pulse race. "Hyun-woo," she whispered from behind the door, stepping closer despite his orders. The man smirked again, clearly enjoying the tension he was creating. "Ah, so it's not just business anymore," he said. "I see why you've been distracted. She's special." Hyun-woo's gaze shot to Ji-eun, dark and fierce, before returning to his rival. "Special enough that no one interferes," he said, his voice low, dangerous, leaving no room for misinterpretation. "Leave, now." The rival hesitated, sensing the storm in Hyun-woo's demeanor, but wasn't intimidated. "You can't just—" Hyun-woo's hand moved lightning fast. A subtle gesture, a barely perceptible threat, but enough. "I said leave," he repeated, his tone final, commanding. The man froze, realizing this wasn't a negotiation. He backed off, muttering something under his breath, and Hyun-woo closed the door, locking it immediately. He turned, every muscle in his body tense, every instinct on high alert. Ji-eun's eyes were wide. "Hyun-woo, that was—" "I'm fine," he said, voice low but not quite steady. "Nothing will touch you tonight. I won't allow it." His hand reached for hers instinctively, holding it tightly, possessively. "Do you understand?" I understand," she whispered, her heart still racing. She had never seen him like this before, so protective, so intense, so undeniably himself. Hyun-woo's gaze softened slightly as he drew her closer again, his forehead resting against hers. "You're mine tonight," he murmured, "and no one, absolutely no one, will change that." Ji-eun's breath hitched. The possessiveness, the intensity, the unspoken promise, it thrilled her, terrified her, and made her pulse race in a way nothing else ever had. "Hyun-woo, I don't know what to say," she breathed. "You don't have to say anything," he said, brushing his lips gently against her temple. "Just feel. Just be here. With me. That's enough." She nodded, leaning closer. "With you only," she whispered. Hyun-woo's dark eyes glimmered with satisfaction, desire, and something deeper, something almost vulnerable. "Exactly," he murmured. "Only with me. Tonight, tomorrow, whatever it takes. You'll see." The tension between them returned, thicker than before. Every glance, every touch, every stolen breath was heightened, charged with emotion, fear, and desire. They both knew the night wasn't over, that the moment they had been building toward was about to escalate even further. Hyun-woo's hands slid to her waist again, drawing her close, fingers tracing the contours of her body as if memorizing them. Ji-eun's own hands trembled as they rested against his chest, feeling the rapid beat of his heart. I'm scared," she admitted, her voice barely audible, trembling with a mix of excitement and fear. "Scared of what's happening, of what I feel." "Good," he whispered, voice low, husky, and filled with unrestrained emotion. "It should scare you, because what we have is dangerous. But it's worth it, every second, every heartbeat. Do you trust me?" She looked into his eyes, searching, trembling, and finally nodded. "Yes, I trust you," she whispered. Hyun-woo's lips curved into a faint, dark smile. "Then there's nothing left to stop us," he murmured. "Tonight is ours." And with that, the penthouse seemed to shrink around them, the city lights fading, the world outside disappearing. There was only Hyun-woo, only Ji-eun, only the storm of emotions and desire that had been building between them all night. Every hesitation, every boundary, every carefully maintained restraint melted away as they finally surrendered to the fire they could no longer deny. If you're hooked on Hyun-woo and Ji-eun's passionate tension and drama, don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment below. Who do you think will try to interfere next? The moment felt suspended, like the city itself was holding its breath. Hyun-woo's hands rested on Ji-eun's waist, her fingers tracing the lines of his shoulders as if committing them to memory. The fire between them had grown to a point where resistance was impossible. Ji-eun looked up at him, eyes wide, heart pounding. "Hyun-woo, what if everything changes?" she whispered, voice trembling, part fear, part longing. He cupped her face in his hands, dark eyes intense yet soft. "It will change," he admitted. "Everything will. But it will be better, because we're together. And for once, I'm not letting the world, the rules, or anything else get between us." Her breath caught. You mean that?" "I've never been more serious about anything in my life," he said, voice low, almost reverent. "You're mine, Ji-eun, and I'll prove it. No one will take this from us. Not tonight, not ever." Her lips parted, and before she could resist or overthink, he leaned down, capturing her lips in a kiss that was fierce, tender, and claiming all at once. Her arms wrapped around his neck, pulling him closer, matching his fire with hers. The kiss deepened, slow at first, then urgent. Every touch, every heartbeat, every breath was an affirmation of everything they had been holding back for so long. Ji-eun felt herself melting into him, surrendering completely to the emotions she had tried to hide. Hyun-woo's hands slid to her back, pulling her flush against him, feeling her heartbeat against his chest. "I've waited too long for this," he murmured against her lips. "Too long to feel what's right. And now you're here. And I'll never let go." Ji-eun gasped softly, her hands clutching his suit jacket as she felt the storm of emotion and desire wash over her. "Hyun-woo, I feel it too," she whispered. "I've tried to fight it, but I can't." His lips curved into a small, almost relieved smile, shadowed by intensity. "Good," he murmured, "because you won't have to fight any more. Not with me. I'll carry us through this, through everything. But tonight, it's just us." They moved together toward the sofa, the penthouse dimly lit by city lights, the outside world erased. Hyun-woo's hands held her, pressed her close, as if the physical contact could communicate everything words could not. Ji-eun's fingers tangled in his hair, anchoring herself to him, as the whirlwind of emotions spiraled between them. You're relentless," she whispered, breathless, a laugh mingling with a sigh, "and overwhelming. But I can't resist you." "And I wouldn't want you to," he replied, voice husky, fingers tracing gentle patterns along her spine, "because tonight we're free. Free from rules, from fear, from everything else. Just us." Ji-eun felt her head spin, heart hammering, but also a deep warmth, a sense of belonging she had never known. "Hyun-woo, I trust you," she said softly, leaning into him. He smiled, dark and powerful, yet tender. "That's all I need," he murmured. "Trust me, as I trust you, and tonight we'll make this ours, completely." Their lips met again, slower this time, savoring the moment, the intimacy, the connection. The tension that had been building for months, years even, melted into something beautiful, something undeniable. Ji-eun rested against him, feeling safe, wanted, and completely hers. Suddenly, the soft buzz of her phone vibrated on the table. She glanced at it, hesitation flickering across her features. "It's my friend again," she whispered. Hyun-woo's hand tightened slightly on her waist, possessive. "Ignore it," he said softly. "They can wait. You're here. Now. That's all that matters." Ji-eun nodded, placing the phone aside. The outside world, all obligations and interruptions, faded completely. There was only the warmth between them, the fire that had been lit and could not be extinguished. "I never thought I'd feel like this with anyone," she admitted softly. "But with you, it's different." Hyun-woo rested his forehead against hers, dark eyes glimmering with emotion. "I know," he murmured. "I've never felt this before either, and I don't ever want to lose it or you. Not for the world, not for anything." Her breath hitched, emotions spilling over. "Hyun-woo, I think I've been waiting for this, for you, without even knowing it." His lips curved into a faint smile, dangerous and tender all at once. "Then you found me, and now there's no going back." The penthouse was silent except for their breathing, the electricity of the night thick around them. They stayed close, tangled together until the city outside began to glitter with the first hints of dawn. Ji-eun rested her head against his chest, heart still racing. "Hyun-woo, what now?" she asked softly. He kissed her temple, holding her as if he would never let go. "Now, we face everything together, but tonight we just exist. You and me. That's all that matters." Her pulse began to calm, replaced by a deep warmth. Then, "Let's stay here," she whispered. "We will," he promised, voice low, filled with certainty and emotion. "Tonight, tomorrow, every moment. You're mine, Ji-eun, completely." And with that, they held each other as the night gave way to dawn, the city stretching out beneath them. But for Hyun-woo and Ji-eun, the world had narrowed down to a single truth. They had found each other, and nothing else mattered. If you've been captivated by Hyun-woo and Ji-eun's story, make sure to subscribe, like, and comment below your thoughts. Who else is ready for more intense Korean CEO romance stories like this?